Hey everybody, welcome to the Outer Regions podcast, the show finally with an actual name where we talk movies, shows, games, whatever else, mostly whatever else. But today we are doing a full recap of the first ever live action Star Wars series on Disney Plus. Of course, The Mandalorian. Tate, what a show. What a show.
Ross, I really disliked The Mandalorian all the way through. I thought that the quality was very poor. I just wish that they brought Ryan Johnson back, to spearhead the series. You know, if he and JJ had collaborated and had tied
not
this
even
better.
JJ, just him.
No, yeah, you're right. Just if Ryan and Kathleen Kennedy just spearheaded the show, just the two of them, I think we would have gotten a drastic quality increase. I mean, in every fight, it's just shooting each other mindlessly. There's no positioning. There's no mental battle. It's just mindless fighting. So I mean, I'm really, really disappointed in the show. Really disappointed in the series. Really disappointed that they're not giving us quality Star Wars content anymore.
Well, I mean, you are a fake Star Wars fan.
The Last Jedi was the last good Star Wars movie, so...
See, these are the musings of a fake Star Wars fan. We all know Tate is a fake fan. But no, I mean, clearly there is some reason to what he's saying. I mean, Star Wars should run from itself, right? You shouldn't have satisfying lightsaber duels. You shouldn't have satisfying space battles. You shouldn't have basic logic. You shouldn't have decent storylines. It should just be a chaos whirlwind of forcing themes down the audience's throat.
Of course. Agendas.
And forcing vagueness and ambiguity and just nonsense over just the simple stories that Star Wars is known for most of the time. But
guys, no, The Mandalorian's the best thing that's happened to Star Wars since the Disney acquisition.
Yeah, so. No, we're just yanking everybody's chain.
Yeah, no, I mean, The Mandalorian, what an incredible series. I mean, dude.
When it was first announced, I didn't believe it, really. I mean, it was just kind of surreal. Like, there's going to be a show. Jon Favreau's doing the first ever Star Wars show. It's going to be for the Disney streaming service. And it's going to be called The Mandalorian. And it's going to... The synopsis they first released had Jango Fett mentioned. And it was like, oh, man. You know, where was this show going to go? Obviously, it didn't take that direction and include those characters. But, man, when we finally got to see what they're working on, all those teases leading up to production, when you would see George was on set, and freaking Elon Musk, when he showed the IG-11, prop for the first time, and you heard everything that was going on set and how cool it was, and everything Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni were doing. I mean, just the announcement that Dave Filoni was going to be involved, that was incredibly exciting. The show just wound up to be amazing, man.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, like 6 of these 8 episodes just turned out like pretty much exactly what we were looking for, and everything that was promised. Especially chapters 1 through 3, and especially 7 and 8, which I think are the best 5 of the 8.
I agree that they're the best 5 of the 8 episodes. I 100% agree. Actually, no, I don't agree. I think that 4 is better than 2. But my enjoyment level for 8, I don't know why it's so tainted, man. I watched it again, and I'm just like, dude, I've seen this episode 3 times. I don't know what is preventing me from enjoying it, even though I know it's one of the best episodes. I don't understand. From a critical view, I know that it's an amazing finale, but I just did not like it. I don't know why, and it's
right.
Oh man,
being a fake fan,
it makes it very easy.
Lend itself to such outlandish opinions of not loving absolutely everything that you see. Man, I bring it up a lot because it was just a really cool panel. But when we were all there in Chicago, and we ran through, we walked, we sped walked through a blizzard to get to the Mandalorian panel in the Wintrust Arena there, we were just really, I mean, immediately the first thing that just was very clear was the passion just coming off of that stage, right?
Yeah.
From just John and Dave first up when they came out together. And after Kathleen Kennedy introduced the two of them. But then also, I mean, Pedro Pascal and Gina Carano and Carl Weathers, dude, they were all just so
On point.
excited.
On
So
point.
excited following the work they had just done and the incredible series they had just finished shooting. And they showed us that first footage. They showed us a lot. I mean, that featurette they showed was incredible, and all the work ILM was doing, and some of the focuses. I wish they would release that featurette online. I don't think they did, but it was great. And they showed us like 6 or 9 minutes of raw footage from chapter 1 and 2, or no, chapter 1. Yeah, it was just chapter 1. And dude, the launch of Disney Plus was finally really great. But then when we actually got to the pilot, I mean, it was just so amazing and incredible because it was Dave Filoni's directorial debut after 15 or so years working at Lucasfilm, working with George Lucas on the Clone Wars and Rebels. Dave Filoni's a legend, right? We ran into him shortly after at the end of Celebration in the street, and we talked to him. You know, Dave Filoni's the real deal,
Right.
and he directed an incredible pilot. I mean, the
pilot's great.
was fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah. The pilot is my third favorite episode. I mean, wow.
It was great.
Yeah.
And then episode 2 was sort of a really fun side quest that also wound up connecting in with the story, which was really important. You created the relationship between the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda, and it was revealed that Baby Yoda was force sensitive. You got to meet the really cool Ugnaught Queel. I mean, even before all that in the pilot, man, I mean, just one thing, of course, that I have to touch on is IG-11. I mean, watching that IG-11 sequence, it was just magical, man. I mean, it was like, oh my God, this is being directed by Dave Filoni, right? Like, this was him behind the lens with Jon Favreau and just the most talented people working on this series, right? I mean, they announced Deborah Chow for chapters 3 and chapter 7. They announced, Rick Famuyiwa for chapters 2 and 6. I mean, Ludwig, from Black Panther to do the, as the composer. I mean, just the best people working on this. Bryce Dallas Howard for chapter 4, and
let's just honestly,
it was
Ross,
incredible.
We're a little strapped on time, so let's just jump into our rankings of the. Let's just jump into it. No, but let's jump in and. Let's kind of discuss, starting from the top of the series, the best the series has to offer, slowly working our way down to episode 5. I think that would be something really cool to do, to really just go over the quality of the series, right?
Sure.
Because we can go episodes 1 through 8, but everyone's doing that. So let's talk about our favorites and our least favorites.
100%.
So I'm going to throw up a spoiler graphic right here, if you guys have not seen the Mandalorian. Season 1, then tune off.
Yeah,
because,
we are talking spoilers.
Yeah, because I know personally episode 7 is my second favorite episode, so we're jumping right into spoilers. End of the series spoiler. So yeah, dude, let's just start off. I mean, episode 3, Ross. I know we agree on that one. I mean,
oh my God,
that is the best. That is the best piece of Star Wars anything since the Disney acquisition.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's fair.
Go back and watch our podcast on episode 3 because I think we talked about it for 2 hours, if I remember correctly.
Something like that.
And it deserves that amount of discussion. I mean, episode 3, it is the most dynamic Star Wars plot I think we've gotten since Legends Extended Universe. And what I mean by that is there are actual politics being hinted at and being addressed in the episode. So interesting, so fulfilling. It's a perfect episode in every way. It's the only episode I'd given the series a 10 out of 10.
I mean, it's so balanced. It's got so much going on, and it's just so intentional about each focus of the episode.
Very deliberate. Each sequence is very deliberate. You jump from politics to action to politics to action to Mando's growth as a character to human ethics to space ethics. And then you have fan service in the most tasteful way possible, right?
Right.
In the absolute most tasteful way possible. There's a stormtrooper in the I don't know what we call it, the compound maybe, the little area. He's using a Geonosian blaster. What?
A Geonosian blaster?
Yeah, yeah. There's a Geonosian blaster being used. The
No way.
the big green front end like ball thing with
Yeah.
the exact sound too, the sound. You know what I'm talking about?
I must have missed it.
There's DH-17s in the episode. There are just blasters from the time period, random blasters. It seems it's incredible. That's how you do fan service. You outfit the stormtrooper legion that is hanging out by a thread. You give them random scavenged weapons. That was incredible to see. Plus, of course, you have the Mandalorian. You have the Mandalorian Guild showing themselves in that incredible ending sequence. I mean, that episode I would not. That is the only episode I wouldn't change anything about. And I would.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
when he was dropping off Baby Yoda, I was not expecting the show to pick up the pace in one episode like that and achieve that much. I mean, Deborah
Dude,
Chow
that's a
just.
finale episode.
I mean, that's why when we all watched Chapter 3, we were like, okay, they can't do any better than this.
Yeah, and
But,
they
season
didn't.
1. No, and we were right, but I mean,
That's okay.
yeah, I mean, it's still just so great just that Chapter 3 even happened so early on that we have that already. I mean, it's like rewatching the final sequence with the Mandalorians is like it delivers the same excitement that like Endgame delivered in its portal sequence. I mean, it is just so satisfying. But before all of that, man, they drop off Baby Yoda and he's talking to Grief Karga. He's questioning his morals. He's questioning why he does this and if he's going to allow this to happen to a baby, whatever the ex-Imperials or the Imperial Remnant has in mind. And I mean, within moments, he's infiltrating the base, killing everyone. The client disappears, and he retakes Baby Yoda after crafting his Beskar armor and meeting with the Mandalorians. And man, even before that, like with the Mandalorians, you had the whole exchange of ideas and who they should associate with, and I mean they're pulling out vibro blades. They're talking about the purge that occurred. They're talking about the Mandalore. All in one freaking scene as she's crafting a full set of Beskar armor for him.
What's amazing as well is that you get these Mandalorian scenes where they're talking, where you have this complete lore dump, right? You have this complete lore dump about exactly what Ross is saying, but then you also have a lore dump on the Bounty Hunting Guild, their ethics, their morals, their code. You have exposition dumps on the Empire and how they're operating now, how they're operating very underground.
They're in sewers.
They're right. Oh, well, the Mandalorians
the Mandalorians in sewers, and the Imperial remnants are practically almost there.
Right, exactly. And you're seeing politics on screen in a Star Wars piece of content that actually works, because it's not politics in the traditional sense of, well, it is politics in the traditional sense, but it's not politics in the sense of representatives standing in a room. No, it's people that are governing this destroyed, tattered world in their individual factions. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, and the interplay between the factions, the whole episode. I mean, oh man, the conflict that ultimately ensues when the Mandalorian completes the infiltration with dude, and that infiltration, man, oh my god,
that's like the best action sequence in the series, in my opinion.
I wouldn't go that far, but I mean, it is so compelling and so suspenseful, and all the different tools that the Mandalorian uses.
Gritty and real.
He uses the grappling hook. He uses the flamethrower. He burns a stormtrooper alive.
He uses the knife, the vibro knife.
He uses stealth. He uses the knife. I mean, the Mandalorian is just in his element and taking down imps, and it is just really. Really exciting.
I really think that's the best action scene in the series, man.
I mean that's fair.
Yeah,
it's well done.
With how gritty and down to earth it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jesus Christ.
And when he uses what I forget what they're called, the like the canaries or the
whistling birds.
The whistling birds. Thank you. I mean, that was really cool. And in one thing they also had in Chapter 3, of course, was the first look at the flashbacks.
Yeah.
Or the second look. We had the first look in the pilot.
Right.
but this time we actually got to see the super battle droids, the droid gunships, and you're getting this first look at the Clone Wars from the perspective of civilians, when the Jedi are not there, when there are no Clone Wars there, when the Separatists were just oppressing other worlds. And
not everybody can be as lucky as the Lurkin.
Right. I mean, it was very raw, and that's a look into Star Wars you often don't get. And again, that's just another little piece that came with this episode. It was just a brief set of flashbacks as the armorer is banging down and crafting
as the armorer
his full set of Beskar armor. What?
Whoa, Ross! This is a family-friendly podcast.
And you just couldn't hesitate. You couldn't.
I'm sorry, MGF.
No. But yeah, no, Chapter 3 was freaking great, man. And the biggest takeaway following the amazing shootout sequence at the end between the bounty hunters first off and then the Mandalorians is that, oh man, Deborah Chow is leading up the Obi-Wan series.
Yeah, right? And oh my god.
Her 2 episodes, Chapters 3 and 7, are the best of the series. Arguably. I like it, Chapter 8 actually more than 7. But dude, does it get me excited. It gets me so excited for what she's going to bring to the Obi-Wan series, because she is just fantastic for
Ross,
Star Wars. She's demonstrated that both of her episodes.
We need to address chat because I'm very upset.
Oh no.
Lego Pete, do not say Pete. Ezra instead of Luke here. Never bring up Ezra. If we get a live action Ezra that adopts Baby Yoda, I will be so frustrated. I really want Baby Yoda. I really want the Mando and Baby Yoda to find Jedi artifacts, to find Jedi temples, but I don't want them to interact with Jedi, period. They can't. Because that throws off the entire, almost all of the validity that the sequels have. And the sequels barely have validity as is, from a lore perspective, especially with Rise of Skywalker. But man, if they just start introducing Jedi that were around, that's not okay. Luke would have seeked them out. We would have heard something about it in the sequels. No, I would not be okay with that. It's a big galaxy, but the Jedi are so omnipotent and powerful. No.
Yeah, so we were talking about that in the context of like the Mandalorian season 2, where, oh boy, like what characters are going to be showing up from the Skywalker saga in season 2? That's a rumor that's floating around, and it's like, hopefully just bounty hunters. Hopefully just characters that we don't want any major players. The whole point of the Mandalorian is to steer clear of things that have been done before,
right.
To steer clear of the main story, that this is supposed to be the antithesis of the Skywalker saga, something that takes place elsewhere, that isn't as connected, that doesn't directly tie in to the main affairs going on in the galaxy. And so that was a big reason why, and we'll talk about episode 5 in a minute, why that was a big part of why I really didn't like episode 5, because they pulled that card and it was so unearned and it was so shallow and it was just so trash. But
so let's just go. So Ross, my second favorite episode is definitely episode 7. What do you think?
I like episode 7 a lot for the same reasons that I love chapter 3, because it's just so tight, it's so focused, it finally brings the cast together, and you have character arcs, you have story reveal after story reveal, and it instantly in one episode becomes the show we were all promised.
Yep. Episode 7 is the perfect team-up story, which is something that everybody's wanted. Ross and I definitely wanted it. We wanted at least Cara Dune and Mando to team up, but instead we got so much more. Mm-hmm. Right? We get this beautiful, just a marvel of cinema. We get this character dynamic that is just wonderful. This team dynamic that is just wonderful. The chemistry amongst the cast, holy crap! Now you do.
I didn't know that. I didn't think they were going to work as well as they actually do together. So, like, I didn't really see Gina Carano necessarily bouncing off of Carl Weathers' performance as well as it does.
Now I want to say this. Makes it extremely frustrating that we lost. I'm going to say this. Okay, I'm going to say this outright. We lost episode 2. Well, no, never mind. I'm not going to say that. We lost episode 5 and 6, right? In the sense of development. You need
Oh yeah,
episode
no,
two.
we
You need
talked about
episode
this.
two for the
The series is chapters 1 through 4, and then 7 and 8.
right. You need episode two for the Quill and Mando interaction to build that relationship. You need episode four for the Cara Dune Mando relationship. 5 and 6 don't do anything. Makes it really frustrating because if we could have gotten this team up 2 episodes earlier, I mean, Jesus Christ! Imagine them. Imagine you have Mando, Quill, and Cara Dune for another episode together. That would have been really great to see. Because I don't know about you, Ross, but Quill and Cara Dune, their interactions were phenomenal in my opinion. Then coming from two different sides of the war, but having the same ideology, wanting the same thing, one of them being oppressed and the other one being almost oppressed by herself because she was so aggressive and so far indoctrinated into the shock trooper role. Incredible. It adds so much dynamic to the cast, adds so much dynamic to these characters, adds so much dynamic to the Star Wars universe. These felt like real people.
Yep.
For the first time in Star Wars, we have real people. And I don't want to say the very first time, but
for the first time in a long time.
For the first, honestly, dude, this might be the first time ever. I'm gonna just flat out say it. These are the most realistic characters I think we've had in Star Wars. Now the Mando is a little bit of a Gary Sue because of that Beskar armor, but besides that, I mean, dude, these characters are wonderful. Absolutely. I mean, that's what makes 7 and 8 so good, and especially 7.
And what's great about all this is it's not even including Baby Yoda, right?
Oh yeah, who's just a star.
And Baby Yoda, he just spices up every scene that he's in. I mean, one scene it's the Mandalorian and Cara Dune just talking, and Baby Yoda just sticks his little head down, and you're not expecting anything to come up, and then he's just like crashing the ship, right? He's jerking the ship, and he just adds this flair to every sequence, even if it's just his little waddle, man. It's incredible. And a lot of people, I think, starting out with the Mandalorian, they were wondering, oh man, well, I thought this was going to be a bounty hunter show about a bounty hunter Mandalorian just taking down targets, and I think we got that, right? We got
so much more than that. Oh my god!
And I appreciate the dynamic the surprise dynamic that came in with Baby Yoda becoming such an integral part to the story.
Yeah, I want to say that Baby Yoda is the perfect amount of comic relief for the show. This show's very serious. It doesn't need a character like Kreese in Fallen Order. It doesn't need a C-3PO. It's very grounded, and we get our comic relief in very real encounters between the Mandalorian and Yoda, right? Din Djarin's a dad. He's Dad Djarin, right? And Dad Djarin, him taking care of the kid is the comedy. You don't need outlandish jokes. You don't need big outlandish characters. I feel like you get that a little bit in the last episode, but it was great. I thought it was awesome. With IG-11, I liked his character a lot. I will say.
Oh, same. I mean, that was the big highlight of the pilot, right? Was IG-11 and that whole sequence and seeing an assassin droid fully realized.
But yeah, I mean, the comic relief in the show has been pretty expertly done, I think.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, episode 7, great. Team dynamic, wonderful. Now, for the rest of the series, so I think it goes 3-7-1.
Wait, can we just take a second to talk about IG-11 though? Because I mean,
I was thinking about talking to him with the pilot because jumping into the pilot.
That was just one element that I wasn't expecting in Chapter 7 was for Quill to have picked up IG-11 and basically raised him over the following weeks. I thought that was such a cool and unexpected idea. And I just wasn't expecting him to return in that capacity, and I just thought it was so natural and so organic for the story, while still being somewhat unexpected, and it was really well done.
Yeah,
I absolutely loved it, man. Nick Nolte as Quill, just great.
Great casting.
What an incredible effect. What a great performance in his part. I mean, Quill literally looks like Nick Nolte as an Ugnaught.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah. It's excellent. So moving into episode 1, I think those are my top 3. What do you think, Ross? 3-7-1?
I think that's totally fair.
Yeah.
That's I mean, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for me, my personal top 3 is Chapter 3, Chapter 8, and then I'm undecided kind of if I like the pilot or Chapter 7 more. I would probably have to go with Chapter 7.
Yeah, well, I think that the top four are definitely,
I really like the pilot though. Yeah, I think that my third would be the pilot.
yeah. So 3, 7, 8, and then episode 1 in any order you want.
Sure.
I think are kind of accepted as the best episodes, and I'm inclined to agree. Despite me, just I don't know why I don't like 8. I just don't like it, man. I know it's completely irrational.
Yeah.
I give it. I told you, Ross. I was like, it's an 8 out of 10 episode. It really is, but it really bugs me.
It's not irrational. It's natural for you to hate Star Wars. You are a
God
fake
damn
fan.
it, Ross. You know what, Ross? Take your chess move. All right, we're gonna settle it on the chessboard. So let's talk about episode 1. So we talked about 3. We talked about 7. Let's talk about
Phantom Menace.
Yep. Let's talk about the Phantom Menace. I wish Plagueis was in the movie, man. It's just so sad and never have gotten Plagueis. But anyway, episode 1, dude. What an introduction. I mean, I wanted to bring up IG-11 here because, I mean, dude, that dynamic, that personality we get with IG-11 just completely heightened in 7 and 8. Turning him into a human being.
I mean, we were worried about IG-11 because we thought it was just going to be Taika Waititi speaking plain English, playing Star Wars Basic and just, essentially spewing up a Korg storm, right? Just just straight up comedy and just kind of ditching
very
the authenticity of Star Wars. But
very
oh my god,
character, man.
we were very wrong, man.
Very deliberate character.
Loved it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what blew me away, man, is the CGI. I mean, that was
just
as good as, if not better than, K2SO. And
no, dude, I mean, IG-11 is the most impressive.
Crap.
I think that might be the most impressive droid on screen.
There's not one shot of IG-11 I didn't believe.
Yeah, 100% fair.
Which was crazy because I mean, of course we nitpick the hell out of everything. And so I was really expecting IG-11 to look out of place. Dude, he looks real in every shot. It's like, I mean, it's nuts. And just the way they designed the sequence around him as he's spinning and twisting and using his 2 blasters and just thinking through the situation logically as a droid. And what I loved about IG-11 too was that even though he's a hunter, he can negotiate, he doesn't really consider alternatives.
No.
Right?
He's still a droid.
Right. And so
primary function as
there are
in
at least
episode
2
8.
or 3 occasions where the Mandalorian is like, okay, no, let's not do that. Let's just do this because this makes sense. And then IG-11 is just like, that is acceptable. Just didn't even run through his processors. And then you kind of get like the culmination of that in the finale when he does consider all the scenarios and all the outcomes, but then still just has to make his own decision.
Right.
That is ultimately the only decision. So I mean, just everything that I'm really glad that all the character arcs, even the subtle ones, really reach completion.
Yeah.
To 100%. A large extent. And,
it's such a shame though that we did have to kill off IG-11 because.
But I was okay with it, man. I feel so satisfied with all the screen time he had. I mean, the
I do
pilot,
too.
7 and 8. I really feel like my assassin droid itch has definitely been scratched, man. I mean, oh my god.
So the reason I say that is because Quill doesn't have a legacy, and that's kind of a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, 200-300 year life, just get blasted by a couple scout shipper interns.
No legacy, man.
It's very raw.
Yeah. So episode 1, great. I mean, dude, the bounty hunting opening scene. What a way to start. What a way to start a series.
Yeah, so I mean, the Mandalorian opening sequence of the pilot definitely it had me concerned because the Mithril, is that what they call him? The blue guy, the aquatic species, dude. I mean, they made absolutely no effort to make him a believable alien. I mean,
He's just a guy in blue makeup. I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, it was distracting. It was distracting.
Yeah.
They made the humans in the cantina speak English, and then the Mithril is just the average Joe guy. And it was just bizarre because it was like, okay, every aquatic species we have seen in Star Wars, they sound aquatic, And nope, not Mithrils apparently. This guy's talking about molting like he's just. It was bizarre, but nonetheless, really good prosthetics.
Yep. I agree.
So, yeah,
Let's talk about episode 8. Let's talk
sure.
about episode 8. Now, I don't want to interject
Let's
too
go.
much here because, dude, I don't know why. I just all like the nitpicks I have with episode 8 are so heightened. I'm a huge fan of Taika Waititi's directorial style when it makes sense. And I don't, dude. There's just tiny things that just irked me about it, and it's 100% just a personal bias that I can't get over. I understand that this episode is great. Like I said, I give it an 8 out of 10. But
Right.
the action is
I,
phenomenal. The TIE fighter scene is one of the most awesome parts of the series. But
I think a lot of it was some of the greatest parts of the series. I mean, the battle against Moff Gideon, IG-11 showing up on the speeder bike. Um, I mean, the helmet removal scene between Din
IG-11.
and IG-11, and I mean the flame trooper sequence was amazing.
It was okay. I feel like that one's very. I feel like that one's.
I thought
Yeah,
it
I
was
feel like
pretty
it's
powerful,
given.
man.
I think it's given too much credit. I'm gonna be honest with you.
No, I thought it was pretty powerful because you have a lot of sequences in Star Wars right now. Like, for instance, The Rise of Skywalker had a lot of powerful, unearned sequences that felt shallow.
Yeah.
Rey's ultimate defeat of Palpatine should have been the most powerful moment in the entire franchise, the entire saga.
Dude, in Star Wars
And
as a whole.
instead, a
Yeah.
smaller scene with Baby Yoda taking out a flame trooper feels much bigger, much heavier, much
Oh
more
man,
important.
him taking out the Rhino just felt bigger to me.
Right, exactly.
Um,
Oh god, dude, and then yeah, Moff Gideon. I mean, John
Moff
Carlos
Gideon. Wow.
finally showing up.
Wow.
Oh my god.
Dude, okay, Scout Trooper scene. I gotta talk about it because it's in my head. Dude, the fact that Moff Gideon as a character is discounted in that pissed me off. I think more than any part of it.
It didn't, for me, I didn't discount Moff Gideon. It just took two stormtroopers, and we know how stormtroopers are already. We already know that they're people. They're just your average morons in armor um, who enlisted, but it didn't really discount it because, I mean, people talked about Vader and Palpatine in similar ways. All of Star Wars greatest villains. I mean, it
What
doesn't really
discounts
discount.
him? What discounts him is the fact that, he was interrupted, so we killed the guy. That is not the character we were given on screen. That is a character. That's the kind of character Vader is. That's the kind of character Grand Moff Tarkin is. But that's not the character we were given here.
Well, I mean, we don't really know that yet, though, because we haven't
But
had
here's the thing, Ross. So with all the information we're given, right? All the information we're given, we know Moff Gideon to be an imposing threat, but an imposing threat who is very deliberate, who is very slow moving, who is very nuanced, and that deletes the nuance set up. In my view of character, in my view of character study, my very pretentious view. Lego Pete, shut up, dude. I will ban you. If you say Cal Kestis and Ezra in this show, I will ban you from the channel, dude. I like you, Pete. I like your Kick Patowski video. I really do. But Ezra and Cal should both be dead at the hands of Vader, and they're not. Because Disney doesn't know how to write a Star Wars story besides, Jon Favreau. I'm sorry.
Disney doesn't know how to let go of characters half the time.
Jesus Christ. Pete, you're good. You're good, Pete.
Well, anyway, the Scout Trooper sequence, I remember you gave me a lot of warning about it before I even watched Chapter 8. There's a 4-minute Scout Trooper sequence. The whole episode is going to be crap. And I was just like, oh man, you didn't say that. But I mean, that's what I was expecting. I was like, oh god. Taika Waititi, given the reins. Episode starts with a 4-minute Scout Trooper sequence. And I'll be, dude, I mean, I'll love it with you. It shouldn't, it's a nice little calm before the storm that should not have lasted 4 minutes, though. And in its current state, as it exists in the episode, really should have just been put in the extras because, oh my god, it does go on for way too long.
Yeah. Dude, it throws off the flow of the episode. It really does.
But that being said, I can't agree there because then as soon as it's over, it is complete smooth sailing and the fucking greatest finale that I could have expected from that point forward. I mean, just delivering the greatest action sequences the series has to offer, doing complete character arcs, completing all the character arcs set up. I mean, taking these characters and uprooting them and challenging them and preparing them for the future. I mean, in just about every satisfying way that I could have really thought of, and more. I mean, everything that I wanted to happen in this episode happened, like short of maybe Bo-Katan showing up. I mean,
That's
which
a
wouldn't
season
really have
two.
even made sense.
That's a season 2 right there.
Right. I mean,
yeah.
oh man.
Yeah.
Again, another sequence, of course, we had the full culmination of the flashbacks, and where they just delivered all of them in one singular direct montage. And it was revealed that the Death Watch from the Clone Wars, that they were the ones who picked up young Din on that planet.
Ross, I need to rant.
And inducted him in.
I need to rant.
Yeah. Okay.
This is what you get when a Star Wars fan writes a Star Wars story. When a Star Wars fan is spearheading a Star Wars story. Who knows Death Watch better than anyone else? Who better than even George Lucas? Dave Filoni. Because it's Dave Filoni's brainchild. On a show where Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are friends, where Dave Filoni is the lore guy. He's the guy they bring in and say, hey, does this make sense? Who does he make the savior of Din Djarin? The Death Watch. What does that give us as viewers? If we know nothing about Star Wars, cool looking Mandalorians. If we know if you know Star Wars as well as Ross and I do, and the people who know it even better than we do, you see this savage clan of anarchists, of terrorists who care about nothing about power, that still have ethical values.
Right.
So it starts making sense why our Mandalorian, who hunts people down for a living, still has those ethical values with Baby Yoda. It applies so much dynamic and layer to these characters and makes them human beings with actual brains. Right? Whereas Death Watch in the Clone Wars, they were just terrorists, besides maybe Bo-Katan.
They were just anarchists. They were just trying to subvert Satine's power and revert Mandalore back out of its pacifism. And that's one thing that I think The Mandalorian really delivers on in many ways, is that variety of perspective. Is, if you're talking, like, for instance, in Chapter 7, the client is talking about the Empire and the security it offers, the opportunity, the order, and just somebody who has lived it all his life and just genuinely doesn't get it. It's like he you could tell that the client just genuinely didn't understand why the revolution had to happen, why the Galactic Civil War had to happen. The Empire was just exactly what the galaxy needed. It was the framework of the galaxy, and it just doesn't make sense that any of this had to happen. Or then, like we're saying with the Death Watch, when we see the Death Watch in the flashbacks, these Mandalorians, who we knew to be anarchists in the Clone Wars, terrorists killing innocents for their own gain and to retake power of their homeworld, are suddenly the heroes to this child who is a victim of this conflict. And you just see all these different varying perspectives that are otherwise not really offered in any other part of Star Wars unless you're reading books. I mean, you don't get that perspective like we see with the Super Battle Droids unless you read a book.
Yeah.
We don't get that horror and the illustration of the Clone Wars or really any of these conflicts unless you read one of the books. So seeing all this on screen and seeing all of it so consistent and having it all feel so authentic still to Star Wars was really, really great.
Yeah.
And the attention to detail was really, really great. You didn't have anything in this... Okay, so episode 5 notwithstanding, that was garbage, and we can talk about that at the end.
That'll definitely be at the end.
But aside from episode 5, you didn't have anything like in Rogue One, where the guys from the cantina just walk up on screen and are like, "Hey, look, it's us!" No, this was an authentic Star Wars experience.
God, dude. So
aside from episode 5,
in the Afro book, that same guy is just there. I don't know his name.
Is he?
Yeah. So Ross. That there's a mad doctor that that is the same race that Afra teams up with, and then he goes to torture her when he betrays her, and he broadcasts it to that same guy. To the what's that guy's name? I don't like you either. That guy. He broadcasts.
I never cared.
He just shows up in the Afra book. He's just there watching this mad doctor do his science experiments. They gave those two characters too much, man. I mean, they're like international criminals in Star Wars Legends. I mean, they're like highly decorated. It's hilarious.
Yeah, so I mean, and the attention to detail was definitely there. Like, I mean, the Death Troopers, they actually sound like Death Troopers, right? You didn't
Yeah.
lose the sounds that they make with their garbled.
And they still look like Death Troopers. Now, Russ, I want to say this. With a lot of movies going over to shows, you have a quality decline in the consistency. And the consistency of the armor, the characters, like you're saying, the voices. Dude, these Death Troopers look the exact same as the Rogue One ones.
Oh god, dude!
They're
I mean,
all
they're like
tall
right
and
from
thin.
Rogue One.
Yeah, they're all tall and thin. They're just perfect. They're just Death Troopers.
And man, when Moff Gideon finally lays it down, and again, more of that added Mandalorian lore just in conversation because it's relevant. You realize this is the war criminal Moff Gideon, who was supposed to have been executed by the New Republic after Return of the Jedi,
Right.
but instead is very much alive. And then you also learn from Din and him, because there was a name for this new purge of the Mandalorians that we didn't know about, and it was seemingly led up by him.
Yeah.
And so now our main villain of the series, Moff Gideon, is the one who wiped out all the Mandalorians after Rebels. And that's organic.
Yeah.
That's natural. That's not forced. That's not contrived. Right? And I really appreciate it. I really do. Because, again, stories in Star Wars don't have to be complicated. And they certainly don't have to be contrived either.
Yeah.
And
speaking of which, let's talk about...
But what I loved about the Death Watch really quick is how the armor was different.
Oh,
so they're a different shade of blue. They have rangefinders. They're bulkier. They're almost like... They look like Death Watch super commandos, right?
Yeah,
elsewhere,
really. Oh my god.
Separate from Pre-Vizsla, off doing Vizsla's bidding on another planet. It's cool to know that the Death Watch was not just exclusively focused on retaking Mandalore.
Yeah.
So, I love that.
Speaking of small-scale stories, like Star Wars doesn't have to be... Star Wars is not complicated. 2, 4, and 6. Very strong episodes. Very much more so side episodes. But they get the job done. It's not impossible to write a Star Wars story. And it's not necessary to write a large-scale Star Wars story. And those 3 episodes really prove that.
Yeah.
2, 4, and 6 are great. I really think so.
Yeah.
They're fun. They're filler. And not filler in a negative way. They're filler in the way of, they show us the galaxy.
Yeah, chapters 2, 4, and 6 definitely have me a little bit conflicted, because I like out of all those filler episodes, I still do like chapter 6 the most.
Yeah.
But I love how chapter 2 was structured out of those 3, out of the 3 functional filler episodes. But 2 and 4 were the only ones with story developments, right? So we talked about this. In 2 we get the 4. Yeah,
6 is
we get to reveal that. We get to reveal that Baby Yoda is force sensitive. We get Cara Dune in chapter 4. But then chapter 6, man, the story's just not existent. It doesn't matter. But yeah, so I mean, what I love most about chapter 2, if we're talking filler episodes now, it is how you just had that amazing interaction with the Jawas, right? It's very Star Wars. He leaves the Razor Crest unmanned for just a little bit on a desert sequence, and then it gets stripped down, and he's just going to Queel and just fending off these damn Jawas for like the whole episode. He's crawling up the sandcrawler, and they're throwing debris at him. They're trying to shock him. He's just pulling them out of the hatches. He gets up there to the top finally, even after they try to knock him off by veering close to a cliff. And then they just, it's just a really fun, very genuinely Star Wars episode. And that's fine. I think a lot of people misinterpreted what we meant by, about a lot of the negatives that we had with filler episodes. It's not that we don't want filler episodes. It's not that we don't think filler episodes are okay. But it's like, if you're going, again, to reiterate one last time, if you do a filler episode, you gotta have some kind of story progression,
Yeah.
at least a little piece. And that's why episode 2 works, because of that Baby Yoda scene at the end. And then chapter 4 relies, as far as the story is concerned, completely on Cara Dune's inclusion, entering the series as a main character and being introduced to her. So she is the story of chapter 4. And then, but then chapter 6, man, while it's a lot of fun, it's really cool to see the New Republic. The bounty hunters are all solid. It's an interesting episode. It's got really great sequences when they're infiltrating the transport, when they're fighting off these New Republic droids that looked amazing, by the way, and were great. Yeah. When Matt Lanter is there, scared out of his mind, this new, essentially like this newbie warden for this transport, basically, who is essentially grown up in a time without war, and is suddenly being cornered by bounty hunters and then ultimately killed. That made for a really powerful scene that Matt Lanter did ham up a little bit, but it still worked. I still wish they didn't just blow Matt Lanter's inclusion in Star Wars on that, though. I kind of wish they got another actor for that. Because Matt Lanter, he's so good, man. And of course, he's the voice of Anakin. And then, when he takes control of the prison transport after escaping from the cell, and then he's closing doors, he's cutting the lights, he's taking them out one by one. You don't know what he's doing to them after the scene's cut and end. I mean, it's just it makes for a really tight and really well done episode.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's Bill Burr, and Bill Burr is good.
He's just Bill Burr, man.
Just Bill Burr.
So I traditionally watch these episodes earlier than Ross does because I wake up at 4 a.m. Pacific time. It's around 7 o'clock Ross's time, and the first thing I texted Ross that morning was Bill Burr is Bill Burr, and Ross says what? And I was like, Bill Burr is Bill Burr. And Ross watches the episode about 2 hours later, and he's like, oh shit.
Yeah, and so I mean, that's the thing is like you look at Carl Weathers, you look at Gina Carano, you look at Giancarlo Esposito, you look at The Client, and you don't question that they are their characters for a second.
No.
I mean, but then, even the bounty hunters in episode 6, the Twi'lek, Xi'an, you have Berg, the Deveronian, you've got the droid Zero. All authentic. Yeah, they're all authentic. They're all really good. And then there's just Bill Burr.
Now let me say this, Ross.
But he's good. He's good. I mean, it's Bill Burr, but it's Bill Burr.
The difference between Bill Burr and Carl Weathers and Gina Carano and all these other characters, Bill Burr's a stand-up comic. We see Bill Burr being Bill Burr on stage all the time. So you have to do something to change it up.
Yeah, I thought they were going to give him like a cybernetic eye or a scar or a helmet or a visor or
now all these
have him talk a little bit differently.
All the other actors, we always see them in acting roles, right? We don't always see their face. We see them with different inflections and different personalities. This is Bill Burr with Bill Burr's personality and Bill Burr's face that we've seen as a human, not as a character, but as a human. And I think that's why the Bill Burr is a little bit jarring, right? In the episode, as opposed to if he was a designated actor, if he was being transformed in each role he played. But still great. I mean, Bill Burr's awesome. Dude, I love that guy. I love his routines. He just does not give a shit. He just does not care.
Yes, sir. But yeah, man, and so I especially appreciated the Twi'leks. I know you did. I know a lot of people actually don't like Xi'an.
Oh, she was very fingernails on a chalkboard.
She was very over the top. I mean, the hissing was bad, but overall, I thought her and her brother were genuine Twi'leks.
I will agree with that. No, I will agree with that.
I fully believe that they were Twi'leks. That they were Twi'lek scum just lifted right out of Ryloth. Very authentic and very consistent with how Twi'leks are portrayed elsewhere in Star Wars, in the Clone Wars and Rebels. So I like that a lot. And but I mean that of course brings us to you know what? Let's talk about Chapter 4 for a second because I love that ATST sequence.
I love that whole episode, man. That is
Let's
one
just
of
talk about it. Like they used an ATSD to create a Jurassic Park sequence in Star Wars, and it worked perfectly.
Okay, can I rant for a second?
Yeah,
Dude, the Empire's a joke in Star Wars, like traditionally. TIE fighters are shit. AT-ATs are shit. ATSTs are shit. But we get to see what they really are from a lore standpoint. Right? We get to see that an ATST is devastating if you don't have a Jedi with you, if you don't have 3,000 Ewoks with you.
yeah.
Right? We get to see that a TIE fighter, like when Moff Gideon's flying around, is devastating when you don't, have Jedi or the greatest star pilot to ever live, Han Solo, with you. I mean, they show very grounded. Gives us a really good perspective on what these machines actually do. Which I very much appreciate, man.
Yeah, because I mean, you always see the rebels, and they're always ready and equipped and prepared for ATSTs. But when it's just a Mandalorian and even a rebel shock trooper who only have blasters and a few thermal detonators, it's just not enough.
Yep.
And it's really well done. So much of the Mandalorian is really well done. I mean, so much of the series is to die for. I think, of course, Jon Favreau should absolutely be proud of all the work that he and all the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who worked on this show have pulled off here. I mean, you had some incredible directorial debuts here with Dave Filoni for the pilot, Bryce Dallas Howard for Chapter 4, Rick Famuyiwa, doing work with Chapters 2 and 6, Deborah Chow delivering arguably the two best episodes, and for us, very clearly the best episode in Chapter 3. I mean, amazing CGI work for IG-11 and the effects done for Queel. I mean, ILM just doing amazing work here. Pedro Pascal, of course, who cannot be undercut as just conveying so many emotions and just so much underneath that helmet. And it was so cool that they committed to it and kept that helmet on for the whole first season.
Dude, I thought episode 4, I thought it was done. I was like, oh shit, they're really doing this.
Yeah, they're just going to pull it off, right? But no, they committed, and
they really
Pedro Pascal, and I appreciated the sequence where he finally accepts IG-11 as an ally and accepts that not all droids are bad and that droids really are just reflections of those who create them, and allows IG-11 to remove his helmet because IG-11, of course, is not a living thing, and at the end of the day, he is just parts and processors, and so I thought that scene was really great, and the fire behind them. I mean, it was just so much of this series is just phenomenal to look at and incredibly compelling to watch. The performances, of course, are not groundbreaking or revolutionary, but they work and they are all great, especially Pedro Pascal and Carl Weathers, and then Gina Carano does great work throughout her time.
Something that is groundbreaking, though, is
4, 7, and 8 as well.
Something that is very groundbreaking, though, is the fact that our main protagonist doesn't have a face.
Yeah.
Right, and a lot of people complain about that. Oh, faceless protagonist, he can't convey emotion. He conveys it in his voice. His voice changes frequently. Very, very frequently. To inflect upon his his certain situation. And I just think that is so wonderful.
But of course, we do have to highlight the absolute garbage that was Chapter 5.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to talk about it for too long, man. I mean, we don't have a lot of time, but I mean, listen. Chapter 5 was garbage.
Yeah. For
a very specific set of reasons that are very clear, that are very obvious. It was blatant nostalgia bait to go back to Mos Eisley out of nowhere. Just because the Mandalorian happened to be nearby and somebody happened to randomly attack him. Couldn't be to go to the Hutt's palace and get help from another crime syndicate that is active on the world. No, you just go to Tatooine just because. The dialogue was horrendous through and through. The character Toro Calican was horrible. The actor was horrible. The performance was terrible. The mechanic was horrendous. I mean, that was she was she was a bad character out of a shitty episode of Rebels. I don't care that she has had a great career and that I'm sure she's a nice lady. That it's like Laura Dern in The Last Jedi. No business being in the episode. Just completely distracting, totally awful. And then Ming-Na Wen completely butchered and wasted with some of the absolute worst dialogue I think Dave Filoni could have given her. I mean, and clearly a very big lack, just a total lack of direction because she's just spewing that dialogue like a robot. It's terrible. The whole episode is terrible. And what am I? Were we supposed to enjoy it because there was a really nice speeder sequence? No, the whole episode is trash. It's garbage. There is almost nothing to enjoy in that episode besides the nostalgia bait, which is completely unearned, which does nothing, which adds nothing. The whole episode was so bad. It was like a 7th or an 8th grader wrote it. And I could not have been more disappointed in Dave because he wrote this. Didn't just direct it like he did the pilot, which I think he did a great job directing the pilot, but he wrote Chapter 5. And I don't know if he was on a time constraint or what, but Chapter 5 was bad. And I was so greatly disappointed in Dave with Chapter 5. It killed my hype for the rest of the season. So I was now proceeding into watching each episode every week very cautiously. Because if something like Chapter 5 is allowed, and praised even, then anything goes. And that's scary. And it's scary that something like Chapter 5 even made it on Disney+. And that Chapter 5 was one of the 8 episodes. Because short filler crap garbage episodes with terrible writing and horrible performances and blatant nostalgia bait is fine if you're doing 20 episodes, if you're doing 16 episodes. But the fact that that was one of the 8 was really sad. Because then Chapter 6 went on to also, while still, like we discussed, be a really good episode, contributed nothing to the story. And so the whole series is really just Chapters 1 through 4, and then 7 and 8. While Chapter 5 is complete trash. And then Chapter 6 is just meaningless to the story.
Yeah.
While still, even though it's enjoyable.
He needed some money. So, he got some money.
That just really surprised me, man. No, that's not.
I'm just teasing.
Yeah. I mean, so surprising because I being in Chicago and listening to them talk about the 8 episodes, it just we were given every reason to believe that each of the 8 episodes was going to be tight and focused, and it was going to be a focused story because they were going with the shorter 8 episodes, and it gets me concerned for Obi-Wan, right? Because Obi-Wan's only going to be 6 episodes, and it's like, what if they blow it completely like that, so completely on 1 or 2 of those episodes? It's like, oh, then you only got 4 episodes to enjoy out of Obi-Wan, and I don't think that's right. And I really hope Jon Favreau does not and is not currently developing another episode like Chapter 5. And it got me concerned for the Clone Wars final 12 episodes coming up beginning on February 17th, by the way. Because it's like Dave Filoni wrote The Siege of Mandalore, the final arc.
Yeah.
And clearly Rebels had an impact on Dave because he brought a shitty episode of Star Wars Rebels to screen to the first live action Star Wars series, The Mandalorian, and it's on Disney Plus, and you can watch it in all of its shitty glory right now. And I think that's a shame. I don't know what the circumstances were. I don't know what he was thinking, but Chapter 5 is garbage. And it sucks because Chapter 5 had a really good concept in there with Toro Calican of a young bounty hunter who doesn't really know what he's doing, but is trying to make the right decisions morally, but then more so just for himself. And you could have done a lot there. You could have had a lot of emotional gravity there for a young bounty hunter who's just still more so afraid. But no, we didn't. I hate even talking about Chapter 5.
So
and then Chapter 5 is just
about...
No, wait, I'm not done. Because then Chapter 5 is just all the more insulting when it ends with a shot of somebody's boots. And guess what? You got the Boba Fett sound effect. And then there's just nothing else about it for the rest of the season. And I so predicted it because Episode 5 was so trash and so garbage. I was like, they're not going to do anything with that. And then they didn't. Chapter 5 was terrible. Yeah. It is the one outlier of The Mandalorian saw that
really
was just so shockingly bad.
I would say that out of 7 episodes we liked, I give like episode 2 a 7, and that's like the lowest score. Yeah. And but then episode 5, I mean, just dive bombs. It's completely dive bombs.
I give chapter 5 like a 1 or a 2 out of 10.
Yeah, no, I mean it's like a 2. It's like a 2 for me instead of a 1 because you do get that you do get the Tusken Raider scene, which is pretty cool.
I didn't care that much. It was cool that they brought on deaf actors to do that. I mean, that was all fun. Great. We got Tusken Raiders doing Steinlein. It's like, the fact that people point to that, it's like some saving grace for that shit. It's like...
Oh, it's not a saving grace at all.
It's like, okay.
No, it's not a saving grace. It's just, a good part of the episode to highlight.
Yeah.
And you have the space battle in the beginning. The space battle is entertaining.
And I'm not going to... The space battle was just some 80s-inspired Rebels extension crap. I didn't like it.
Okay.
I thought that was awful, and I thought the circumstances were contrived and just shit. I mean, my God, tell a story.
Yeah.
But no, and then I'm not going to deny that it wasn't cool to see Mos Eisley after Return of the Jedi and how Tatooine is basically just a wasteland.
Oh, dude, I thought it wasn't cool. I'm going to be honest with you. It didn't do anything for me. It didn't scratch my itch.
It didn't do anything for me either. But I mean, if we're just trying to pluck the little things that made Chapter 5 a 2 out of 10, that's one of them. And,
yeah.
Oh, man.
As opposed to a complete failure.
Chapters 1 through 4, and then Chapter 6, Chapters 7 and 8, amazing.
Yeah, great show.
Chapter 5 is the only outlier. Chapter 6 still works despite absolutely no story development. Incredible season. I really hope they don't make a mistake like Chapter 5 again. Because they are working on Season 2 right now, of course.
Yes.
And it's coming out, this time, or, fall,
August,
winter of this year.
Ish. I thought it was August. Is it fall?
Is it August? Yeah, it's in the fall.
Okay. So probably like September, October.
Yeah.
They're not going to make the same mistake they made this time. They're going to release this well before Christmas. They lost, what was it? $100 million suspected that they would have made if they had Baby Yoda merch out when the series came out.
Right.
They're not making that mistake again. But anyway, Ross, I would give this series a 9 out of 10. I would say watch it all the way through. Watch it 3 times all the way through. Skip episode 5. That's what Ross and I are going to do when we rewatch it together. What about you, Ross? What do you think? Just an arbitrary score for The Mandalorian Season 1.
I would probably go 7.5 out of 10.
Really?
Yeah.
That's surprising. I'm usually the more harsh one between the two of us. But still great though, right?
Yeah, man.
Cool. Well, moving on.
So, yeah.
This is just going to end up being me getting mad because you want to talk about that Darth Bane picture you sent me?
We'll talk about what?
That you sent me a picture of Darth Bane.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about 400 years before the events.
Yeah, so a new report just came out from Making Star Wars, indicating from they say several sources, and Making Star Wars oftentimes, I want to say 70-80% of the time are fairly reliable. They have really solid sources. So I like to think there's certainly some truth to these reports. That the next set of Star Wars films, not even necessarily a trilogy, but just the future of Star Wars, is going to be set in the past. Seemingly 400 years in the past, during a time they're dubbing the High Republic, which is bizarre because the Republic was just always called the Republic, but I guess you can call it, I guess if you want to call the era that kind of works. But
this makes me so mad, Ross. I'm sorry to cut you off before you even get into it. Guys, the 1,000 years Yoda was alive, well, minus the past 20, the last 20 he lived through, were incredible for the Jedi. The Jedi and the Republic had a complete stranglehold over the galaxy. The Mandalorian Wars ended. The Jedi Civil War ended. The Sith were gone. There was no Sith threat. Yoda thought that the Sith could never return. Throughout the Phantom Menace, he says over and over and over again, impossible it is for the Sith to return. So many times he says it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come out saying, oh yeah, large-scale Star Wars story 400 years before the events of the movies. What?
Yeah, and so we don't
How?
have the only details that were offered in this report is that there would be a younger Yoda in it, and so Yoda would be about 500 years old, and then um, Darth Bane's rule of two is already
Oh,
established.
right, because it was established in 990 or something like
Right.
that.
So we don't
900.
have anything else. We don't know what else they're going to cover or what the stories would be, what the characters would look like. We have no
It
idea.
can't be Sith. It can't.
Right.
If it's
But it
Sith,
can't.
it's
But
completely
exactly like Tate
discounting.
is saying, it cannot be Sith because the Sith have been gone for millennia, and the first time the Sith reveal themselves once again
Is
is
Darth
with
Maul.
Maul on Tatooine. Maul on Tatooine, and then in the hangar on Naboo is the first time the Sith reemerged publicly.
And
Now, of
remember,
course,
guys, remember, Yoda says to Qui-Gon after Tatooine, it could have just been a fallen Jedi. Could have just been a dark Jedi. But Qui-Gon knew better.
right.
He said no.
And the Jedi knew that the Shroud of the Dark Side had fallen for a long time, right? They were fully aware that there were people using the dark side. They just couldn't track who they were. They didn't know they were Sith. They didn't know how it was
They
happening.
were assumed to be dark Jedi
Um,
and cultists. The Sith is not a dark side user. I
right.
feel like Disney's confusing themselves. The Sith are an exclusive group of the most highly trained dark side users. Just like the
Mm-hmm.
Jedi, and I thought Disney knew this with Chirrut, right? Just like the Jedi are not the only Force users in the galaxy, not the only organized Force users.
Sure.
So it's extremely frustrating to know what we know about Star Wars, to know about Dark Jedi cults, to know about Fallen Jedi, to know about, and then on the light side, we know about Force Paladins. We know a lot about different factions. And I already know that they are going to just go back and say, oh yeah, the Sith beard. And we're completely going to throw away
Dude,
George's
and
legacy.
I I want to be the first one to say that they won't be that stupid, right? It's the listen, man.
Look at Rise, dude.
Rise of Skywalker did not care about the Star Wars universe, so it's certainly possible. It is certainly possible that the Phantom Menace will be the next saga film on the chopping block as far as negating the story.
If you want to
Um,
reintroduce Sith, right? Because I mean that's what they're gonna do. These are
it's hilarious
buzzwords,
because it's like all you had to do was be like not 400 years into the past, but 1,000 years into the past, and you're good.
right? Exactly.
You're
Right,
good.
right. Exactly. 1,000 years into the past, before Yoda, before the Civil War, or not
Yeah,
before the
it's
Civil
like
War. This is way
you
after
know
the
all
Civil
you got to
War.
do. It's like what do you have to do 1,000 years into the past? You just have to have the Jedi on Coruscant, and like what? Have Darth Bane around. You can't have Yoda because Yoda isn't born yet. And that's and then it's otherwise because it's obviously new canon. It's free game. Do whatever you want.
Yeah,
I mean, as long as you
but
just make sure the
Ross,
Sith are gone 1,000 years before the films pick up, you're good.
Yoda, especially after Baby Yoda, he's a buzz character. He generates buzz.
Yeah.
Same reason why they have to do the Jedi and the Sith.
Yeah, when you do a big thing with a character like Baby Yoda, you got to do something that follows up. If you kill Han Solo in The Force Awakens, you got to do a whole young Han Solo movie. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
man. No, I mean
bullshit.
it
Trash.
is certainly trends. It's trash and it's trends. But I mean, I don't want to sound contradictory of where I think Star Wars should go. And to kind of close out the conversation, I guess, um, I still believe that Star Wars, the future of Star Wars, lies either far into the past or far into the
Yep.
future with a total reinvention of the
Of
galaxy.
the politics of
No,
the galaxy.
exactly. So no more Republic, no more Separatists, no more Rebels, no more Empire, no more Resistance, no more First Order. Do something completely new that is totally unique, tell a completely different story on a galactic scale that really keeps you in the Star Wars galaxy but changes everything.
What they need to do, and this is the only thing that is satisfying to me, is going 1,000 years into the future. A
Yeah.
1,000 years in Star Wars time is not very long. When you look at Yoda as a character and as a species, right? Yoda species, they live for 1,000 years. That's like 100 years. Think about how much has happened in the past 100 years of Earth, and then think about how much has happened in the past 1,000 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
100 years ago, in 1920, we had organized society. We had cars. We had, very early planes. Very early. I mean, there was functional society. Comfortable functional society. But 1,000 years ago? 1,000 years ago, people were on Viking longships sailing coast to coast, completely destroying villages, right? To get some semblance of religious fulfillment. It's a lot different. So if we're translating that into Star Wars, you need to separate 1,000 years and 10,000 years, right? 1,000 years is like 100 years for us. That's not very much time at all. 1,000 years for us, 10,000 years in Star Wars, that's a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. I don't think you need to go 10,000 years into the past or future.
No.
Just even 500 years into the future would suffice. But then
not 500. I think 5,000. I think 500 is.
I don't think you need to go that far. I get what you're saying, but I don't think going that far is entirely necessary.
Well, the Republic's not going to fall in 500 years.
I mean, that's often even further than they would go in Legends. But I mean,
you'd be surprised.
No, Legends, dude, I'm aware of it.
Legends is insane.
Legends goes really far back, but
they go to 20,000 ABY. Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, I love it. I love Legends so much.
But that doesn't necessarily need to be the case at all for anything on screen.
No. I'm thinking like 1,000 years though. 1,000 years is a good amount of time.
Right. So I think if they want to tell a story between the Jedi and Sith again, you got to go 1,000 years into the past. That's the one caveat about the past. The past is certainly a way forward for Star Wars, but the caveat is if you're doing Jedi and Sith, you got to be 1,000 years before. Yeah. But then if you go in the future, I would say even just 100 or so years that's more than enough time to completely change the galaxy. Right?
No, if you want to have the Republic completely fall into ruin. And have a new form, and maybe a decentralized government, where it's more governed by individual planets that come together and maybe have federations. I think that'd be a very good route for Star Wars. And honestly, dude, in the next movies, they need to touch on the politics of the universe. The First Order just coming out of nowhere doesn't make any sense. It's so dissatisfying.
Yeah.
So in the next Star Wars, they need to say, say we have people in a group on a planet. Politics are happening on the planet. And then you open up to more planets as the series goes on. I don't know. But have some sort of decentralization, because it keeps it interesting. Have another empire rise. Just not the Galactic Empire. Have something more small scale. Have that kind of impending threat. And instead of maybe rebelling against an empire, you are the empire. The protagonists are
right,
that empire.
And that's exactly what I was excited about watching The Last Jedi in 2017. And we talked about this, where it was like, I for a moment thought that they were finally going to start doing it.
Yeah.
And that Rey was going to take Ben's hand, and they weren't going to be merciless or ruthless, but they were going to start reshaping the galaxy how they saw fit. And that they would create a lot more gray area with the story, because whatever Rey and Ben would go on to do for the next decade or so would actually restore order to the galaxy in many ways, while still creating, horrible scenarios elsewhere. And there would be something really compelling about that. And I was like, oh man, finally Star Wars is taking a new direction. But then, no.
A realistic direction.
No.
Of course not.
No, didn't happen, and it was very disappointing. But yeah, I think that if you need to establish an empire or you need to establish a large governing body, or two of them, if you need to keep that format, the way that I think you still continue to change Star Wars around completely is, like you're saying, is through the character. So suddenly the main character is not all redeeming, right? Is not perfect. They are at the head of this, of whatever organization it is.
You don't need to have an oppressive empire, man. You really don't have to have an antagonistic
empire. It might be an empire, but you just create something new for the characters. You challenge the audience.
But it's a Disney film, Ross. You're watching Infinity War, you're like, wow.
I mean, of course, the prequels had tons of problems, but that's exactly what Revenge of the Sith did.
Yeah.
Was 100%. Challenge the audience. Because suddenly your main character just starts killing everyone.
Your main character starts killing everyone, and your main faction, the Christians of Star Wars, start saying, "Holy crap, we failed." Right?
Yeah.
Disney does not take chances, man. With Endgame, they took a chance, or with Infinity War, they took a chance, and they completely redacted it with Endgame. They will never challenge the audience because that's not what the audience wants. The audience wants to forget their human issues and go in there and have fun. That's the difference between a media fan and a film fan. A film fan wants to be mentally challenged. A film fan wants to be stimulated. Just a film goer.
Yeah.
Frustrating, really is. And I know it's pretentious, man, but I don't care. It's realistic.
Well, I don't really have anything else to add.
Nope, me neither.
That was a wild ride, The Mandalorian. Chapter 1, or Season 1. Chapter 1 was really good. And this is our first show in 2020, man.
Happy 2020. Happy New Year, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, everybody, for joining in.
It is the year of the rat. It is the year of MGF. It is the year of the outer regions. What else is there?
It is the year of World War III.
It is the year of... Oh, let's talk about this.
Oh, no. I just had to say
Ross, I forgot. Thank you, sir. We don't have Ross's branding anymore, so we're allowed to talk about anything. Perfect. Here we go.
Oh, no.
The U.S. has made a big decision.
Oh, boy.
A very big decision. The high commander of the Iranian military, was bopped by our country. And they've raised their war flag for the first time in the country's history. Yeah. Now, the problem with this encounter, these are very traditionalist states we're fighting against. Very traditionalist. Founded in their beliefs, their religious beliefs, in their, not in their, social beliefs like we are. No, they're taking what they know from their founding from, 2,000 years ago and using that to govern their country. Now, of course, that's very unfair to the governing powers of the country. I'm not a racist. I don't want to claim that. But when it comes to wartime, we're seeing that. Right? We're seeing that directly. Now, that's scary. And it's not scary because we're threatened. We're not threatened at all. We have the greatest military in the world. You know who's threatened? Our allies. Right? The U.S. allies. Saudi Arabia's right there, man. Innocent people are going to die. How horrible is that? Because of a decision made, And it's not a decision made on a whim, right? It's a decision that I think maybe needed to be made. I haven't formed my opinion on it yet. But people are going to die because of this. And it's just traditionally what happens, right? With war. It is certainly. It was. I've been off Twitter a lot over this past month, and only checking in here and there, and it's like, man. So when you told me about what had happened, I was like, oh, it was all news to me. Yeah, might have been Corey, I think, first order, but it was yeah. I remember your shock when I brought it up to you, man. Well, in the morning, the morning after. But yeah, it's very concerning. It's scary. Now darkest timeline stuff, Are Americans threatened directly? No. Are Americans going to be drafted? No. Most likely not. Now, the reason that is because we have this $2 trillion military. $2 trillion military. That can't be right. I just don't know, but that's the claim. And we have enough service members. We have the technology. We have everything. But, our allies in the Middle East, dude, they're dead. And that's horrible. If we take nuclear action on these planets, we're dead. Everyone's dead. Because Russia and China have already stated, the U.S. takes any sort of nuclear action, they're retaliating. Even if they're not affected. That's why we haven't nuked North Korea. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting spot we're in. We're safe. Here in America, I mean, shoot, to the American viewers, we are so fucking lucky. I live near a Marine base, right? I live in Oceanside, California, so there's a Marine base right here in my hometown. One of the places that they would nuke first on the West Coast, right? But we have these cruisers lined along the coast with anti-nuke intercepting missiles, so we're fine. We're unaffected. They send nukes over. We have, I think it's 100 times more anti-nuke missiles than there are nukes in the world, or something, some insane value like that.
Jeez.
But everybody else. Worst case scenario, man, darkest timeline, nukes start flying, everyone else is done. Even if it doesn't escalate to that point, right? Even
Hopefully the end times have not arrived just yet.
No. That's not going to happen. I'm just saying that this is a hypothetical. I'm just saying that Americans are safe, right? The most likely thing to happen, and what will happen, 100% will happen, is U.S. allied countries in the Middle East will be invaded by Iran and their allies, and very unfortunate that is. Innocent people are going to die. Americans are going to die. It's sad. Really is. Now, this decision made to assassinate this commander, the second in command of the country, it's up to you to decide whether or not that's well decided. But I will say this.
You hate Star Wars.
I hate Star Wars. I hate everything. But more importantly, politicians traditionally have instigated conflicts to remain elected, to remain in office. We saw that with the Afghanistan papers that were just recently leaked. I'm not saying anything. I don't want to, full on say anything defamatory about the government. But Ross, I mean, it's very hard not to think that way. Especially noting the whole impeachment situation.
Yeah.
I mean, politicians traditionally instigate conflict in order to stay elected, or in order to be elected in the first place. But formulate your opinions on a non-pop culture podcast. I don't want us to tell you what to think. We're just here to deliver news and information. So,
yeah, I mean, that's really, I think, what Outer Region, that's what the show is kind of evolving into, is just obviously still pop culture focused and still inclusive of Lego. I mean, I haven't talked about anything Lego this episode, but obviously I'm working on a lot of stuff right now, especially now with 2020 ramping up more than 2019 ever did. And yeah, but I mean, having the space, while it may be jarring to people who are used to the formula, people who are used to the more average discussions around things that are relevant in entertainment and what we love. A big part of the rebrand with Outer Regions and always wanting to change the name was to create this space, right? Where we can talk about whatever we want and not feel bothered by it, because we are not exclusively
pop culture
or any one specific category with this name. And that is why the Outer Regions name is very general, and that was a big part of picking the name.
Right.
Is that it could be anything, and so yeah.
But in closing,
so if we talk about World War III out of nowhere, then
sorry guys. I mean, especially if I'm a very opinionated person, obviously. Ross, you're a very opinionated person as well. If this ramps up, man, if this gets worse and worse, I mean, we don't have a large platform like the big influencers do, but I will start calling to arms, man. I really will.
Something more terrifying is well, not more terrifying, but equally as terrifying, is that Australia's still burning right now.
Awful.
That
Awful.
is one of the greatest, worst calamities I think the world's ever seen.
Dude. It's Pompeii level of destruction. It's awful.
It's not stopping either. And,
it's not, man. It's not.
People who have died, the land lost, the 500 million animals. Just, oh my God. I mean, Australia is burning to a crisp right now, and not enough people are talking about it.
Yeah. If you are from Australia, our prayers are with you.
Yeah, I mean, the feeling of helplessness sucks.
I mean, I've donated. I don't have much, but I donated. I donated $50 to the. I don't even know what it was. It was like a zoological thing. But guys, donate where you can. I mean, it really does help.
The links are everywhere.
The links are everywhere. So do what you can. And if you're from Australia, stay safe. Stay inside.
And don't go outside the regions.
Don't go outside the regions.
I'm sorry.
Guys, stay inside the inner regions, or else you'll end up in the outer regions. Thank you guys so much for watching. Yep. That is so cringy. Guys, thank you for traveling outside the regions. Here we break barriers.
Please stop.
But yeah, the world, wow, 2020, what a start.
Yeah.
What a start. But yeah, boys and girls, stay safe. Keep kicking. Ross, what is your game of the year 2019?
Game of the year 2019?
Your update of the year.
What?
Or your game update of the year.
Oh, I mean, as far as but I mean, Battlefront 2's updates with most exciting...
Saved the game.
Yeah.
Completely.
Those are the most exciting new additions to a game in 2019. And then, as far as a new game, of course, Jedi Fallen Order. I mean, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, despite a cool, fun sequences and some decent gameplay mechanics, was mostly a mess, unfortunately. And I didn't really play anything else.
Well, for me, Resident Evil 2 Remake, best game of the year by far. I mean, no competition there. Absolutely incredible. And they're remaking Resident Evil 3, which is a weaker game overall than Resident Evil 2 ever was. But, oh my gosh, I mean, it's going to be great.
Oh, yeah, dude.
So, yeah, Ross, you should play that. You should play God of War. My update of the year, GTA, dude. The casino update, and then the casino heist. I mean, so much fun.
Yeah, and we're still working through the casino stuff, right? Or do we play it all?
Oh, no, we're definitely still working through it. And what's great about it, Ross, is that it's completely randomized. So, I mean, we can do that forever.
Yeah.
There's I think 100 hours or something of just casino heist, finale alterations. It's a real deal, man.
It's definitely worth playing through again, though. Yeah.
Yeah, Steven and I are working on this stealth one right now, so we'll finish that up as a group. But yeah, guys.
Like, comment, subscribe, click the bell, turn on notifications.
We have lost 30 subscribers since November. Isn't that fun?
Yeah. So, I mean, it sends a clear message that we need to shift focus. We need to certainly find this channel's direction outside of just this podcast and find a bit more structure and better ways to engage with you guys. It is definitely the message is definitely loud and clear.
Yeah, we're going to try to do some weekly uploads. I mean, midweek uploads. We already do weekly uploads, duh. We're going to try some midweek stuff. Little bits of news here and there, that kind of channel. I think we might we might try out. Tim, Plato Thanos, excellent, dude. It will be done by 2035. Yeah, it's life size now. Like Play-Doh Thanos is fully life size.
Oh yeah.
Pretty sick.
Yeah, that's going to be the final Endgame showcase. And by the way, I mean, anybody sticking around who's interested, I am posting the 2020 roadmap right now, actually, over on Patreon. And I'm also going to be posting a full-blown update that kind of details exactly what I'll be doing for the first half of 2020 as far as showcases are concerned. And I'm gonna I'm back to posting more regularly. I'm gonna have my next video go up on Tuesday, and it'll be a collection video going through all of my third-party printed minifigures I've gathered from various sellers over the years. I think that'll be a really fun part of my collection to show before we actually get to the full-on room tour, which I'm hoping to do at some point this month or the next.
And guys, the most important MGF piece of news, exclusive, first time here on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Patreon hasn't even heard about this, but Ross is actually going to be doing Ben and all of his 10 aliens from the original Ben 10 show, the original Ben 10. Yeah. Yeah, so he's going to be doing Accelerate and Stinkfly, Ghost Freak. He's going to be doing Gray Matter, Wild Mutt. He's going to be doing Diamond Head, Forearms.
And Tate's going to be doing all the Teletubbies. And then he'll also be doing a spin-off Kermit showcase. All made from Play-Doh. That is the way.
That is the way. Goodbye, gamers. Much love. Kisses for chat.
Happy 2020. Welcome to the new decade.
Happy 2020.
I'll make it.
Ross, I am so tired.
All right, good night, Tate.
Ross, you know, I was up all night.
Mm-hmm.
I was not gaming. I wish I was gaming. If I was smart, I would have been gaming. I was just sitting there. Insomniac.
Another sleepless night for Tate.
All right, gamers. Au revoir. This is the way. And let's just jump out of it.
Please end the show, Tate.
Goodbye, guys.